Welcome back to the Mobility Project. First things first, I'm going to answer a question that I got. Is how do I deal with an old junky piece of hamstring tissue? I want to show you one of my favorite tools that one of our athletes at a recent mobility seminar came up with. He calls it the Psoasinator. I think it's just a bad idea. He's taken 3 balls, taped them together, and you can imagine this is nasty. And I'll tell you what, I tore a hamstring one time back in '85. But I tell you, if you just place this thing on here, you can be able to get some pretty oblique pressures. And sometimes that's what it takes to kind of feather out some of those big bellies of the hamstring. So, you know, we've smashed on the bar, you can kind of get a ball in there. Sometimes we just need a little something more oblique and nasty. And I'll tell you, crossing the leg over there and just feathering that thing back and forth, you can almost pull the sciatic nerve out of that nerve bed and make sure that it's gliding through there. And when you find a tricky spot, hang out in there a bit, right? Contract, relax. That spot makes my foot tingle a little bit. So just hang out back and forth until you make change. Come in obliquely through there. You can wind that thing further up. If we keep talking about this proximal hamstring, you can imagine you can do some damage in this proximal hamstring area. Looking to kind of capture that nasty stuff and those adductors all the way through to the glute. Homework tonight, and kind of in the same vein as picking off the thoracic spine or kind of freeing up nerve beds, that when we see strange nerve problems or things that feel nervy, remember that one of the first things we should think of is trying to take out as much slack as possible, or give as much slack as possible through this thoracic spine, which is really a neural sink, a neural slack repository. And if I'm having anything that looks nervy or is feeling strange or having lack of range of motion or something I can't explain, I go ahead and go for this, especially if I'm getting anything that responds to pain below the elbow or below the shoulder. So let's go ahead and get on both balls tonight. We're going to start at the bottom of the rib cage, and then we're going to go ahead and start by wrapping back and forth. We're just going to work on the ribs, get in those facets, which are kind of those weight-bearing surfaces on either side. And then once you're going to stay there, once you kind of roll back and forth, we're going to go arms up overhead, and then wait to play into those corners, right? And then try to let this thing break you. Should be able to take big breaths, and then find the next spot, just one segment up. Again, start by rolling back and forth to see if we can just restore that motion. Little rolling up and down, rolling side to side, and the big hug opens up and gaps those segments, those motion segments, and then come up overhead and be able to press to the ground. Work all the way up. I'm going to try to get about 4 or 5 minutes of dedicated work all the way through here, okay? It's going to follow up to that first rib mode we did yesterday. Next piece. We're going to tweak our hip capsule mode a little bit. We're going to work on that kind of idea of using the band to help position the capsule. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to go ahead and load up the leg inside the band. And this time, I'm going to get a lot of distraction going straight kind of backwards. So the distraction is going to be pulling my hip out of the way of itself into impingement. And you'll see on this hip, I impinge right about here. Notice about 90 degrees. But with the band here, it allows me to kind of get further into deep flexion. That's important because if I'm missing a lot of flexion as I come forward, then what ends up happening is that my psoas has to close the distance that my hip flexor can't maintain. So in a long sit position, or anything where I'm ending up with a lot of knee flexion, or hip flexion rather, is that knee comes up and hip comes up. If I don't have a lot of range of motion, then my psoas ends up overextending me to help close the distance of pulling spine and pelvis up to the front, and I get big gapping force in the back. So what we're going to work on is that deep flexion. We're going to go ahead and start in this position here. Might feel a little pingy or impingy. Hang out. Go ahead and hit the extra rotation and do the normal push the butt over, but it's going to feel really different tonight. Instead of feeling kind of lateral, you'll really feel it further in the back, as we should, because that's where that line of force is. So driving into the ground, keep that thing pressing to the back. Look for those corners that feels tight. And what's going to happen is that band distraction is going to really accentuate those corners. So the band's pulling back. Homework number 1. Both sides for a couple, that's number 2, both sides. And then we're going to go ahead and stay in that same position. And then let's go ahead and really hammer some of that straight, like old-fashioned leg stuff. But instead of being here, knees to chest and feathering, right, let's go ahead and come off to the side and try to pull in, load up, extend, come out to this side, load up and extend. But go ahead and climb up that thing, press, look for some corners that you might not get. And by bringing that leg laterally across, you might pull in. It's a little higher neural tension. Don't pull the foot down. Keep the knee bent and then just floss in and out, and you might capture some different parts of your butt, all right? So we're going to use that band to kind of accentuate some of the corners. And then just test, retest. That's the end. Big time difference. All right? Ball, Psoasinator, hamstring. Use the band to distract. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Cut again. And cut. And cut. Cut. Oh, am I still smoking? Hey, what's going on here? Oh, it goes on and on and on. What do you want to say, Julia?
Thanks for that text, Carl.